And with that, the 2025 season comes to a close. Now, I know this is a somber moment for a lot of fans, but I'm just going to be honest with you. Everything's going to be all right. We're going to get through this, guys. We are going to get through this because you know why? Over here at the Football Junkies podcast, we are going to continue to give you the fix that you all need and love because we still have a plethora of different things we need to talk about. There's a plethora of different things that we need to prepare ourselves, okay? We got to get ready for the combine. That's around the corner. We got to get ready for free agency and everything that comes with free agency, okay? But before we get to that point, we have to talk about the Super Bowl. We have to talk about the Dolphins cleaning house. We have to talk about the Cowboys planning to franchise tag George Pickens. We have to talk about the NFLPA's report cards that are being discontinued because the league owners are upset about it. And we have to talk about the plan for the offseason, okay? All of this and more on the 104th episode of the Football Junkies podcast, okay? I am your host with the most, all right? I'm your chief bag row dominant. That's right, chief, head of the table, anything and everything related to the bag, rumors to the bag, and more. I am your hopium deal. That's right, all the hopium that you need to make it through these next 6 months. I am your guy, okay? I'm your GM who currently is not on a team right now, but don't you worry about it, okay? Don't you worry about it because guess what? I am all these things and more, but most importantly, the most important thing that you must remember is I am your host, Kale. Buckle up. It's going to get crazy. So guess what? On three, 1, 2, 3, let's lock in. All right, folks, let's just get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. So let's talk about the Super Bowl. So Sam Darnold, 38 attempts for 19 completions, 202 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 5.3 yards per attempt, and a 50% completion percentage. Kenneth Walker III, 27 attempts for 135 rushing yards, 5 rushing yards per carry. Cooper Kupp, 12 targets for 6 receptions, 61 receiving yards, and 10.2 receiving yards per reception. Drake May, 43 attempts for 27 completions, 295 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 6.9 yards per attempt, a 62.8 completion percentage. Drake May again, 5 attempts for 37 rushing yards, 7.4 rushing yards per carry. Mac Hollins, 8 targets for 4 receptions, 78 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 19.5 receiving yards per reception. So my 2 takeaways from this game is New England exceeded expectations but needs to continue to improve their offense while Seattle dominated every facet of this game. Offensively, the 2 reasons why they made it this far was because they minimized their mistakes and they converted on key downs. Now that can win you a couple of games, but at some point you're going to hit that wall. And that wall was the Seattle defense. Even if the Patriots ran heavier formations, it still would have changed the outcome because at the end of the day, the Seahawks were going to make those adjustments. And once they found a weakness on this offense, they were going to attack it. The Seahawks defense was attacking that left side of the offensive line, and the Patriots offense didn't have an answer for it. You don't believe me? I got some junkie nuggets to prove it. According to Next Gen Stats, Will Campbell allowed 14 pressures, which is a 26.9 pressure rate, which is tied for the most by any offensive lineman in a playoff game since 2018. Now, in the entire postseason, Will Campbell allowed 29 pressures, the most pressures allowed in a postseason in the Next Gen Stats era. Think about that for a second. I even took notes on every single time Drake May was sacked. The first quarter, 1st and 10, 8:51 left, Derek Hall power rushes and chases down Drake May. 3rd and 15, 4:15 left, Devin Witherspoon blitzes Drake May for the sack. The second quarter, 10:43 left, 2nd and 7, Riley Mills walks down, and I literally mean what I say, walks down the left guard for a sack. The third quarter, 1st and 10, 5:10 left, Byron Murphy sacks Drake May. And then in the fourth quarter, 1st and 10, 5:29 left, Byron Murphy sacks Drake May again. It doesn't matter if the Patriots brought in 2 tight ends, if they used their biggest tight end as a fullback, it wouldn't have changed the outcome because the Seahawks defense was fundamentally sound and they had a plan to go after Drake May. They were going after Drake May so much that Drake May became startled in the pocket. There were a lot of times he was just looking at his left side because he realized that Will Campbell was essentially a rotating door all 4 quarters. And since we're talking about Will Campbell, why is it that all of a sudden a report comes out that says, oh, Will Campbell played with a torn ligament in his knee? Is that supposed to be an excuse on why he didn't play well in the Super Bowl? Because I want to ask you this, my fellow Patriots fans. If you guys would have won the Super Bowl, do you think this report would have come out? I'm going to ask it again. If the Patriots would have won the Super Bowl, do you believe that the report would have come out that says that Will Campbell played the entire season with a torn ligament in his knee? Me personally, I don't think so. Now, I'll give the Patriots defense credit because they held their own. They were the sole reason why they were still in that game. But as the game continued on, they started to lose their grip. In 8 targets, Christian Gonzalez only allowed 3 completions for 36 yards. Craig Woodson was doing his thing. Robert Spillane was doing his thing. Everybody on that defense tried their hardest to keep the game close. But unfortunately, the Seahawks made more plays than what the Patriots did. And if we want to be honest here, the unsung hero in this game is the Seahawks' special teams. Because their kicker and their punter was green all night. But let's talk about this Seahawks defense. Because this by far is one of the most dominating performances that we have seen a defense show in the Super Bowl in a very long time. The only 2 other times that I can remember a defense playing this well in the Super Bowl was when the Buccaneers crushed Patrick Mahomes and then the Legion of Boom facing the Broncos. So when you compare the Legion of Boom defense to the Dark Side defense, there is some similarities than differences. So with the Legion of Boom, they had 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, they allowed 8 points, 306 total yards, 27 rushing yards, 279 passing yards, and 1 sack. Now, the Dark Side defense, however, they had 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble. They allowed 331 total yards, 13 points, and 6 sacks. If you was to do a little bit of math between both of these defenses, specifically the total yards that they allowed, it's only a 25 total yard difference. That's not bad. That actually shows you how similar both defenses are. Now, the approach that they have is a little bit different because with this defense, they were more productive when it comes to sacks. Whereas with the Legion of Boom, they were just menaces. God, I miss that defense. But we're not going to talk about them, okay? We're going to talk about this defense. Because this defense was effective in creating pressure while not overly blitzing. According to Next Gen Stats, they generated a 52.8% pressure rate, which is the second highest for the team this season, the highest of any defense this postseason, the 4th highest in a postseason since 2019, despite only blitzing on just 13.2% of plays, which is the 3rd lowest for any defense this postseason. The Seahawks front 7 didn't allow 0 explosive design runs for the 7th time this season. They hit the ball carrier behind the line of scrimmage on 53.8% of design rushes, which is the 2nd highest for this team this season. Now that Junkie Nugget just highlighted how effective this defensive line was, but also sheds light on how bad the Patriots' offensive line was. Now offensively, the Seahawks did just enough to win this game. However, Sam Darnold almost threw 2 interceptions. Now as the game continued on, the Seahawks started to rely less on the passing game and started to rely more on the run game. Another takeaway from this game is the rise of the nickel hybrid safety role. And the reason why I say that is because in previous years, that was a position that was not valued a lot, right? It was usually somebody who couldn't play corner or safety full time, but was athletic enough to do both. But now what you're starting to see is players make a name for themselves in that position. You're starting to see people like a Jalen Petrie, a Nick Emenwari, a Cooper DeJean, a Devin Witherspoon be considered elite players playing that role. And the trickle-down effect that comes with that is now defensive coordinators are going to start emphasizing that role now, and GMs are going to start emphasizing that role in both free agency and the draft. So somebody who's now considered a tweener may now become a first rounder just because defensive coordinators may think, oh, we can use him like how the Texans use Jalen Petrie, or we can use him like how the Seahawks use Nick Manwari. My final takeaway from this game is that the Seahawks made the right moves to position this franchise in the right direction. And the reason why I say that is because when we look at the moves that they made to get to this point, they had to move off of Pete Carroll. They had to move off of Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, and DK Metcalf in order to be where they are right now. And specifically when we talk about the Russell Wilson trade, look at what they received from it. Of course, we all know they got Drew Lock, Noah Fant, and Shelby Harris, right? But look at the draft picks, okay? That 2022 first round pick later became Charles Cross. That 2022 second round pick became Boye Mafe. That 2022 fifth round pick became Tyreek Smith. That 2023 first round pick became Devin Witherspoon. That 2023 second round pick became Derek Hall. And in that same draft class, they also drafted JSN and Zach Charbonnet. In 24, they drafted Byron Murphy, Tyrese Knight, Christian Haynes, AJ Barner, DJ James. This past draft, they drafted Gray Zabel, Nick Manwari, Elijah Royo, Jalen Milroe, Ricky White, just to name a few. This is how you build championship teams, by consistently hitting on your draft picks. Everything that I've been saying since starting this podcast is shown right here, right in front of our eyes. The Seahawks have literally shown that if you consistently hit on your draft picks, if you have the proper infrastructure for success, you are going to be successful. And that's exactly what happened. Now, I'll be transparent just for a moment. I was against the Cooper Kupp signing. I was against the DeMarcus Lawrence signing because I thought those two were washed. I thought those two didn't have no more juice left. But clearly, I was wrong. And so here we are in an offseason where, of course, we all know the Seahawks had the last pick in the draft, but you have a lot of cap space. So technically speaking, you could run this thing back one more time because the roster is still fairly young. So if you wanted to, you could re-sign Tyreek Woolen. You could re-sign Kenneth Walker. You could re-sign JSN and a few other people. Now let's talk about the Dolphins for just a moment. So for those of you who don't know, they decided to move off of Tyreek Hill, James Daniels, Nick Westbrook-Akine, and Bradley Chubb. Now, making these moves, they open up about $34.4 million in cap space, which is good. However, the question we all need to ask ourselves is, how are they going to designate Tyreek Hill's release? And the reason why I say that is because there is a difference in cap savings if they designate it as a post or pre-June 1st designation. Also, if I'm not mistaken, some of his guaranteed money, I think that's tied in with injury bonuses or something crazy. I would have to look at the contract again, is either voided or he's still going to get it. I don't know. That entire situation is a little bit complicated. I'll be honest with you, when they gave him that quote-unquote extension, I was totally against it because he was already under contract with the Dolphins and there was no need for them to give him another extension. They only did it because he made some noise about it and he wasn't happy because he wasn't, top 5 highest paid wide receivers and whatnot. But when we look at this move, this was sort of expected. And the reason why I say that is because we knew that Tyreek Hill was going to be released, right? We knew that James Daniels was going to be released. We knew that Nick Westbrook-Akine was going to be released. Now, Bradley Chubb's situation is a little bit complicated because I would have thought they would have tried to at least keep him, but maybe there was a conversation between Bradley Chubb's camp and the Dolphins, and they probably realized, hey, it's just best that we just let you go right now, so that way you can get a head start with, talking to other teams and figure out what you want to do with free agency and whatnot. But I think player that we need to talk about a little bit more than these guys is Tua. And the reason why I say that is because his contract is a little bit more complicated. Now, according to Spotrac, if a team was to trade for him, they would be inheriting a 3-year, $141.4 million contract that still has $54 million fully guaranteed. I said it before when they gave him the contract, and I'm going to say it now. This was a bad contract from the beginning. I understand that at that point, Tua was playing well. He wasn't having a lot of concussions. The Dolphins were in a really good place. But at the same time, I would have gave him a shorter term deal so that if anything crazy happens, guess what? You can get off of the contract and you have nothing to worry about. Because now you're in a situation where, for starters, if you was to trade him, you have no leverage. Teams are going to lowball you because they realize that, one, I'm inheriting a bad contract. I'm inheriting a player who is rapidly declining and I don't know what state he's in right now. And I have to figure out how I'm going to make that contract work for my books. So the Dolphins can't say, oh, we want a second round pick or a first round pick for Tua. They just have to receive whatever a team gives them. But according to Jordan Schultz, the Dolphins are beginning to field trade calls for Minkah Fitzpatrick. Now, if you're a team that's looking for a safety, would you rather take the cheap route and just draft one? Or would you trade for a proven commodity, knowing that you may have to pay that proven commodity a little bit more money? Now, me personally, I would go with the proven commodity, especially someone like a Minkah Fitzpatrick. But the question is this: what's going to be the compensation to acquire him? And what's going to be the selling point to keep him playing on his current deal? Now, if you're a team like the Chiefs, there's nothing for you to really sell. Come on over, let's win a championship, right? But if you're a team that's sort of in limbo, someone like the Bills or the Buccaneers or the 49ers or, I don't know, the Cowboys, for instance, you may have to sell this trade a little bit harder to Minkah Fitzpatrick because, again, you're in limbo. You're not necessarily a Super Bowl contender, but you might be able to be a more competitive team if you acquire someone like a Minkah Fitzpatrick. So let's talk about George Pickens getting franchise tagged by the Cowboys. So for those of you who don't know, there's different variations of the franchise tag, right? There's the non-exclusive franchise tag, there's the exclusive franchise tag, and the transition tag, okay? I'm going to briefly go over each and every one of them. Then we're also going to talk about the history of the Cowboys using the franchise tag on their star players, okay? So according to Spotrac, the window to make the tag offer begins 22 days before the start of the new league year and lasts for a full 2 weeks, which is, 14 days, right? Now, a team can rescind an offer as long as the tag remains unsigned. But once an offer is accepted and a tag is signed, the tender becomes fully guaranteed for skill, cap, and injury for the upcoming season. Tag players can be traded, but only if they sign their tender. Players who are tagged can still negotiate a multi-year extension until July 15th. However, if no extension is in place, then the player can only agree to a 1-year deal for that season, which is essentially the tag, right? Now, players who are offered a tag must sign it before week 10 in order to be eligible for the season. Now, with the non-exclusive franchise tag, players are free to negotiate with other teams. However, if a player agrees to the offer sheet from another team, then the tag team has 5 days to match the offer. If agreed, then the player rejoins the previous team on the new contract. But if they refuse to match the offer sheet, then the player joins the new team on the deal and the previous team is given 2 first-round picks. Now, for those of you who don't know, that was the tag that the Ravens put on Lamar a couple years ago when they were trying to negotiate his contract. Now, with the exclusive franchise tag, the value is calculated based on the average of the 5 largest current year salaries at that position at the end of the restricted tender window. Now, unfortunately, with this tag, players can't negotiate with other teams, but players can be traded, but they must sign the tag first. Now, with the transition tag, it's the least expensive tag out of all 3 of them, but this one is calculated by the greater of the average of the top 10 prior year salaries at the position or 120% of the player's prior year's salary. Now, players can negotiate with other teams. However, if the tag is signed, then the previous team has 5 days to match the offer. If the team refuses to match, then they will receive no draft pick compensation for losing the player. The deadline to sign this tag is July 21st. Now, if we was to calculate the franchise tag by every single position, here's the difference between all of them, okay? So with the non-exclusive franchise tag for quarterbacks, it will be $47.2 million, $28 million for wide receivers, $27.7 million for offensive linemen, $27.5 million for linebackers, $27.4 million for defensive tackles, $26.7 million for defensive ends, $20.7 million for corners, $20.7 million for safeties, $16 million for tight ends, $14.1 million for running backs, and $6.8 million for kickers and punters. Now, with the transition tag, the value is $28.8 million for quarterbacks, $22.9 million for wide receivers, $17.4 million for offensive linemen, $16.3 million for linebackers, $13.5 million for defensive tackles, $24.3 million for defensive ends, $25.1 million for cornerbacks, $11.4 million for safeties, $6.1 million for tight ends, $40.7 million for running backs, and $22.3 million for kickers and punters. I think these numbers are probably wrong, but this is Spotrac, so do not fight me, okay? Now, the franchise tag has pros and cons. For starters, if a team decides to tag a player, their cap hit is going to be significantly affected by it. However, you can use the tag as a placeholder for contract negotiations between the organization and the player. But here's the kicker. You don't have a lot of time to negotiate a contract extension because, as I just said, you only have a couple of days before the new league year. So right now, if you're the Cowboys, you need to figure out what you're going to do with George Pickens. Now, unfortunately, the Cowboys have a history of doing this. Now, according to an article from Todd Archer of ESPN, the Cowboys franchise tag history is a little bit crazy. So in 2002, they franchise tagged Flozell Adams. In 2008, they franchise tagged Ken Hamlin. They franchise tagged Anthony Spencer twice in both 2012 and 2013. They franchise tagged Des Bryant in 2015. They franchise tagged DeMarcus Lawrence in both 2018 and 2019. They franchise tagged Dak Prescott in both 2020 and 2021. They franchise tagged Dalton Schultz in 2022. And then they franchise tagged Tony Pollard in 2023. Now, according to Spotrac, George Pickens' market value is 4 years, $122.4 million, which is $30.6 million a year. Now, when we look at his stats from this year, he had 137 targets for 93 receptions, 1,429 receiving yards, 9 receiving touchdowns, and 15.4 receiving yards per reception, which isn't bad. Technically speaking, he should have been a first-team All-Pro this year, but we're not going to get into that, all right? Now, with that being said, if you're George Pickens, what do you do at this point? Because remember, George Pickens and Micah Parsons have the same agent, and we all know how that Micah Parsons situation went last year. I don't think George Pickens wants to go through that. But at the same time, if you're the Cowboys, you realize that if you franchise tag George Pickens, that's going to hurt your salary cap right now. Unless you're not trying to pay George Pickens, you're actually trying to trade George Pickens. Let's think about this for a moment. Right now, if the Cowboys were to entertain calls for George Pickens, I guarantee you they could get maybe a second or first round pick for him. But why would you trade away George Pickens knowing that he was super productive with CeeDee Lamb? See, these are the things that make me wonder, what is Jerry really doing? I understand a lot of people are opposed to paying two really good receivers $30+ million a year, but times have changed. That offense is really productive. As long as the Cowboys can hit on their defensive draft picks, this team could go somewhere. But it could only go somewhere when you have adequate weapons. The times when Dak Prescott is elite is when he has multiple receiving options to throw to. That year when he had Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb, that was when Dak was putting up crazy numbers. The proof is in the pudding, folks. That's the recipe for success. That's what you have to do. Now let's talk about this NFLPA report card dilemma. But before we do that, we got to pay some bills. Pardon the interruption, but this is your GM, your bag road Damas, here to talk about RSS.com, all right? So if you guys already don't know, I am a RSS.com affiliate, and so I just want to tell you for just a quick moment about why you should choose RSS.com. So me personally, on my journey of podcasting, I was looking at different platforms just to find the right place. And I looked here, I looked there, I looked everywhere, but I checked out RSS.com, and it was the best decision I ever made. From low prices to interactive analytics to as well as helping you with your distribution, RSS.com does it all. They just started a Slack channel where you can network and interact with other podcasters and even get some insightful tips on how you can increase your podcast even more. Also, RSS.com just launched their paid ads program. So now you can get paid for posting your content. All you have to do is just have 10 downloads and you're qualified for it. Who would want to get paid for doing something that they're passionate about doing? So head on over to RSS.com. I will be attaching my RSS affiliate link within the description. When you click on that link, I will be able to receive some compensation for it. And with that compensation, I will be able to give you guys a better product. A lot of that money will go towards upgrading the microphones, computers, new subscriptions for more analytical information that we can use for future podcasts, all of that and more. Thank you for your support, and thank you RSS.com for making me an affiliate. Now back to the good stuff. And we're back, folks. So let's talk about this NFLPA report card conundrum because there's a lot to unpack with this and it's a little bit confusing. So here's the memo that was sent to all 32 teams talking about this grievance against the NFLPA and the NFL. And I quote, "We are pleased to report that the NFL prevailed in the grievance filed against the NFL Players Association, challenging its practice of creating and publicizing annual team report cards. The arbitrator held that the publication of report cards disparaging NFL clubs and individuals violates the collective bargaining agreement and issued an order prohibiting the NFLPA from publishing or publicly disclosing the results of future player report cards. Throughout the course of these proceedings, despite numerous requests, the NFLPA steadfastly refused to produce any information or data related to prior year surveys. However, at the hearing, the NFLPA's witness and counsel characterized the report cards as union speech and admitted that 1. The union reviewed player responses and cherry-picked which topics and responses to include or not in the team report cards. 2. Players had no role in drafting the commentary included in the report cards, which was written entirely by union staffers. 3. The union selected which anonymous individual players' quotations to include or exclude entirely to support its chosen narrative. And 4. The union determined the weight to give each topic and the resulting impact on the alphabetical grades it's assigned. In essence, the record established that the report cards were designed by the union to advance its interests under the guise of a scientific exercise. These facts highlight the numerous and significant limitations in the methodology and accuracy of the team report cards results that have been reported over the past 3 years. Clubs should continue to solicit feedback directly from their own players to assess the club's strengths and opportunities for improvement, and when considering continued ownership investment into facilities, staff, and services. The arbitrator did not find that the union's independent survey necessarily conflicts with its obligation to conduct a joint scientific survey of players' opinions regarding the adequacy of the medical care under the CBA. Therefore, the Management Council will continue to work with the NFLPA to design and conduct such a survey in the coming season." End quote. Now, here's the statement from the Players Association on the ruling of the team report card grievance, and I quote, "The ruling upholds our right to survey players and share the results with players and clubs. While we strongly disagree with the restriction on making those results public, that limitation does not stop the program or its impact. Players will continue to receive the results, and teams will continue to hear directly from their locker rooms. Importantly, the arbitrator rejected the NFL's characterization of the process, finding the team report cards to be fair, balanced, and increasingly positive over time. Our methodology is sound. The team report cards exist to serve players. That mission remains unchanged. We will continue working to ensure players' experiences are heard, respected, and acted on by their teams, by their union, and wherever else possible." End quote. While I understand the Players Association's views, the ruling is correct. And the reason why I say this is because anytime you have a program such as this, you know there's going to be some level of biasness. Now, anytime an arbitrator can find that the union reviewed player responses and cherry-picked which topics and responses to include or not include in team report cards, you don't have a leg to stand on. You can't just choose the negative responses over the positive responses. You have to play it fair. And if you don't play it fair, they're going to pick it apart. And that's exactly what happened in this situation. Now, my only question is this. What is the end goal with these team report cards? Because I'm letting you know right now, not every owner is going to do right by the players. We have certain owners who are only in it for the money. And then there's other owners who are truly in it to win it. Jerry Jones is not serious about winning a Super Bowl. He's only serious about stuffing his pockets. I don't care what he says publicly. I don't care what moves he make. Jerry is about the money. He is not serious about holding a Lombardi. He had his time in the 90s. If Jerry Jones was truly serious about winning a championship, I guarantee you right now he would have invested as much money as he needs to invest into his team to make sure that they maximize their opportunity to win a championship. But they didn't do it. Really think about that for a second. There's only so many owners who were born into the game of football, right? For instance, the Rooney family with the Steelers, right? The McCaskey family with the Bears. The Ford family with the Lions, for instance. Those are the prestigious family-run organizations whose legacy is intertwined with their team compared to a Jerry Jones who made his money from oil or Shad Khan who made his money from different industries. Make no mistake, I'm not against the team report card program. All I'm saying is that the NFLPA needs to do their job and make sure that there's no holes in this program that the owners can poke through. Because again, these are the same people that colluded together to prevent quarterbacks from getting fully guaranteed contracts. Now, J.J. Watt tweeted this out after the news broke of the ruling of the NFLPA's team report card grievance. The NFL won't let actual players grade the workplace they attend every single day, but they'll allow a third-party grading service to display their rankings of players on national television every Sunday night, which is very true. That is a very true statement. And that is something that needs to be brought up a little bit more because it's unfair to the players that I have to go into a workplace that I know doesn't have the resources that I need in order for me to play my best ball, even though they can get it. Now, I'm not expecting every single team to have an A+ in every single major category. However, the teams need to do right by the players. You wonder why certain players are having to go out their way to get certain treatments and services because you guys aren't providing them, even though you can provide it for them. What's a couple extra dollars to hire somebody that can give massages? What's a couple extra dollars to get some massage guns, to get a sauna, to get a hot tub, to get the necessary things for these players? Because it's going to pay for itself. For all intents and purposes, if you get all those necessary resources and it leads you to winning 1 or 2 championships, who's really complaining? No one. But on to our final topic, and that's to talk about the offseason. So here are some important dates that you guys need to remember. So from February 23rd to March 2nd is the NFL Combine. Now what comes from the Combine is rumors. This is when all those crazy trade rumors start to heat up. This is when you start to hear about players potentially getting paid, maybe getting traded, maybe getting cut, maybe not happy with their organization or their situation right now. This is when all that stuff happens, okay? So on March 3rd at 4 p.m., the franchise tag window closes. However, we have seen in recent years that teams are able to come to terms to a long-term extension once this window closes. We saw with Daniel Jones and the Giants, if I'm not mistaken. Now on March 9th, the legal tampering window begins. Let me explain this for just a moment. In this window, you're going to see a bunch of things, okay? You're going to hear Adam Schefter reporting, well, this player intends to sign with this team. Key word, intends. So in the legal tampering window, all trades and signings cannot be finalized until March 11th at 4 p.m., meaning you can tell a team that I intend to sign with you, but then sign somewhere else. Or you can intend to be traded to another team, but in actuality, you get traded to a team that nobody expected. We see it all the time. Remember that. Please remember that. Because I know you're going to see a lot of things. Oh, this person intends to sign this deal with the Buccaneers. Oh, this player decides to re-sign with the Cowboys. None of that can be finalized until the start of the new league year, okay? Now, from March 29th to April 1st is the NFL league meetings. That's when all the owners come together. They talk about the rules, what rules need to be changed, what rules need to be getting rid of, all of that and more, okay? You probably really don't care about that, but I sort of do. April 6th, off-season workouts begin for teams with new head coaches. So for every single team that has a new head coach, that's when your off-season workouts begin. And in some ways, that gives you a little bit of extra time so you can get comfortable with the playbook, the coaches, all of that and more, okay? Now, April 17th is the deadline for the restricted free agent offer sheet. And on April 20th is when the offseason workouts begin for teams with returning head coaches. From April 23rd to April 25th, of course, is the draft. Yes, we will be live streaming it. We will be talking about it in real time. Stay tuned for that, okay? May 1st is the deadline for fifth-year options to be picked up for 2023 first-round picks. And from May 1st to May 4th or May 8th to May 11th is when rookie minicamp starts, okay? So remember all of those dates. Now, if you want to access those dates, just go on Google, type in important NFL dates, and it'll be able to show up, okay? But I'm going to end this episode here. If you guys like what you are listening, please make sure you guys leave a 5-star review on anywhere and everywhere that you listen to podcasts, okay? We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a few few other places. But if you want to access those places, go on Google, type in rss.com Football Junkies Podcast. It should be the first link. When you click on that link, there'll be a box that says listen to. When you click on that box, it'll give you a plethora of different places that you can listen to the Football Junkies Podcast on, okay? Now, for my YouTube people, like, share, subscribe, turn the notification bell on, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on anything and everything that I have talked in this episode. Am I right about my approach on the Seahawks? Am I wrong about my approach on the Patriots? Let's talk about it, okay? Now, when you go on our YouTube, Football Junkies Pod, there is a link tree. When you click on that link tree, you'll take you to anywhere and everywhere that we have Football Junkies content, okay? Now, for my Instagram people, Football_Junkies Pod, okay? Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is now what? It is together, not spaced, okay? It is together, not spaced. Football_Junkies Pod. Now, you can follow us on TikTok, Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod. I have some more clips and some more content that I want to post out. Just got to give me some time, all right? Now, you can follow me on Blue Sky at GMKale. GMKale, Kaile, as well as on Twitter at GMKale. GMKAILE. As always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for listening to the best podcast that you can listen to on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. And stay tuned. The Stack and Shed series will continue on, especially now that the regular season is over with. And all we have to really talk about is just like smaller little things. So just stay tuned for that, all right? As always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. This is your GM Kale signing out. Peace and love. Later, guys.